Hi everyone, it's Nat here. Hope you're all doing well. I'm on with my first tutorial video using the goodies that I got from Globleland this time around. I cannot wait to have a play with these farm birds. So we have roosters, we've got chickens, we've got some turkeys. And I do have an idea for these, and today I'll also be using the die set that I got that has all these ticket cutouts. First thing we're going to do is use these stamps, do a bit of stamping. So of course the link to Globleland is below, as is the link to the individual products that I'll be using for my two tutorials. There's also my code, which is NAT10, so if you do purchase anything from Globleland, put that in at checkout and you'll get 10% off of any orders. So I have here some white cardstock and some cream coloured cardstock. And I want to stamp some of my chicken stamps onto that with my archival ink. So the reason I am stamping it on both bits of cardstock is one will be for my catalogue of my stamps, and the other one on the cream cardstock we'll be using for our projects today. I also have a bit of paper which I sometimes stamp them onto just to make sure they're inking up nicely. But as like all of Globleland's other stamps I've had, they stamp out really nicely, especially with the archival ink. So now I've got some just old book page there, the plain book page. I saved them from the start and ends of books that I trash from the recycling. And I'm using the date stamps that I've got, the squares. I thought I could fit 4 squares onto my little stamp block here and ink them all up at once. So I'm starting with my black archival ink. I'll also use my brown archival ink, and I do go ahead off camera and use some coloured distress inks as well. Now, if you hear some noise in the background, that is my puppy playing. I try to keep her quiet, but it's, yeah, at least she's behaving herself, so that's the main thing. So you can see there that I've stamped all the chickens and all of the squares now. So it's time for some die cutting with the ticket dies that I got. So I'm using end book page again. It's just some coloured pieces, but you could use coloured paper or cardstock as well. And I'm putting the old book page that I stamped onto on top of that, and then cutting out these little stamp shapes that are in the ticket set of dies. That way I can get both pieces done at the same time. So I'm just changing the colour here. I'm using some of my purple stamped squares from the date stamp set and some purple end book page, cutting them both at the same time. I'm just using the same small stamp die there. They're cutting very nicely. Now we're on to cutting out some of our chickens, and I'm using a bigger stamp die for these. I'm using a rectangle one and a square one. And again, I've got the cream cardstock, then underneath I've got some end book page, which I think will be a nice background for my stamps. And then I just run those through. And then I've got the base as well as the stamped bit ready to make my stamps up. So here I've got 2 pieces of just end book page that's nice and vintage. I'm going to use that just to cut some plain tickets out. I layer it up, and that way I get double the amount of tickets cut. Love these ticket dies. So I continue doing that with all the tickets that are in the die set. Not so much the stamp-shaped ones, but just all the ticket ones. So you can see there that I've cut a fair few bits and pieces, and now it's time to put some of it together. So with the stamped squares out of that date set of stamps, I'm just cutting the edges off so that they will fit onto the background stamps that I die cut. You can see there I did die cut some double stamp pieces as well. So I'm just cutting these small enough to fit onto those. I just put them together so I can make sure I cut them the same size. So I decide just to ink around the edge of them with the same colour that I stamped them in. just to define the edges a little bit. Trying not to get it on the stamp so much, but just to highlight the edges. And then I just use my tacky glue to stick them down onto the stamp backgrounds. And of course the stamp backgrounds are the coloured end book pages. So it's all recycled material to make those particular stamps. And again, with my singular stamps, I just cut off the edge pieces so that it fits on nice, and then we can see the background colour around them. So that's what I'll be doing with the date stamps. Now we move on to the chickens, and a similar thing here. I'm cutting off those scalloped edges. The reason why I die cut the stamped piece is so that I know it's going to fit. Once I cut off those edge bits, it'll fit onto the background nicely. Again, I just do some inking of the edge. I'm just using a brown ink for these. And these, of course, were stamped onto the cream coloured cardstock. And I can stick that together. So what I'm doing is using the little number set that is on the date stamp set there, and I'm going to use that to do the numbers for the stamp. They're a great size to do it with, so I thought that would be a great way to use them. So I'm sticking the two numbers onto my little stamp block there, and I'm just testing it out, but if you put them together like that, they're a little far away from each other, so I thought I'd just stamp them singularly next to each other. Now, some of the stamping of the numbers is a bit blurry, but that's because I press a bit too hard. If I didn't press so hard, they'd come out really clearly, which a few of them come out very, very clearly, so it's more user error. So I've decided to use one of the postmarks from a previous set of stamps that I got from Globleland, just to add a little bit more detail to the stamp. So now I'm moving on to the rest of the tickets. And I'm using some of the date stamps and then a whole heap of the stamps from the pack that I got last time from Globleland, because they work really well for this. So I'm beginning with this strip of tickets, and I'm using the date stamps. They fit really nicely onto these. So I just start by doing that on a few of my tickets. So now I'll choose some different stamps from this other set of mine. I will try and remember to put the link to these stamps down below as well, because they're a great set to have for doing this sort of thing with. And I use the butterfly and the botanical from that set just to add some background stamping. So I did a secondary stamp with them. That's when you stamp it once onto the scrap paper to get the bulk of the ink off, and then just do a lighter stamping. Then I grab some of the other labels and that to fill it up. So I show you a few of these. I think I finished one of these strips of 3 off with you, and then I go off camera and finish them all off, and then come back and show you what we've made. Just checking to see if this label stamp I've got on there will fit onto one of the tickets. So a lot of the stamps in that set did fit onto the tickets nicely. I also did some partial stamping of some of them just to get aspects of the stamp that I wanted in certain areas on the tickets. And I'm just putting some of the numbers together to use. This time I do put them all together onto the block. I didn't mind that there was the gap between them. Didn't get a very good stamp the first time, so I went over it again. Just poking out some of the little holes in between the tickets where the cardstock didn't come out. So I've gone back to my date stamps here, and they have some really neat patterns on them. So I thought if I don't put them on the block and I just hold them with my fingers, I can just get some partial stamping of some of the detail that's around the edges of those stamps. And that really filled these tickets up nicely, I thought. Then I do go around the edges of my tickets with some black ink. I did all the stamping in black and then the inking in black, but of course it would look really good with brown to make it more vintage, and you could use different colours stamping. So I've all finished now, and I had heaps of fun playing around with my stamps and dies. So just a reminder that we used the ticket dies that I got. They have these stamps shapes as well, and I wanted to have a play with those. So you've got heaps in that pack. Then I used this stamp set, which are like diary dates. And then we've got numbers as well on there. Then I use these awesome chicken stamps. I just love these. I'll have heaps of fun with those for my farmyard journals, that sort of thing. You can make awesome ephemera with those. So I just did some simple bits and pieces today to build up my stash. So I'll have a look first at these. So these are like little stamps that I made with the small stamp die there, and I also use these double ones there as well for these, which you can see here. And I just used book fly pages, so the coloured pages that you pull out at the start of books. And I used some blank book page as well, some vintage book page to do my stamping on. And that was with these date stamps. They're a lot of fun too to use. You can use them in a number of different ways. So I did just stamp them using my archival inks and distress inks onto the blank book page. I did cut the book page out with the die as well, and then I just cut the edge off so I knew that it would fit onto the die once I cut it out on the coloured book page. So I've got those double ones like that. Got a few of those. I used a few different colours, and I love the way they turned out. And then I put them on singularly as well, like that. There's another double one here. And then I also offset some of them, and I think that makes a nice little embellishment as well. So I did a few like that. Then I've got a leftover that I can use to do something on. It's always good to cut out a few extras, then you've got them to play with in the future. And I did leave some plain, because of course you could use them like that and stick them down as embellishments too. So it doesn't take long to cut out enough like that to make a nice pile to put in your stash. So that was heaps of fun. Just put them to the side. Next, I used my chicken stamps. And I did these in the same manner that I did those smaller ones. I stamped the chickens onto some cream cardstock I used for this. And then I die cut the background as well as the cream cardstock, and then cut the edges off so I knew it would fit. Then stuck the top onto the base. The base is again your end coloured book page because I have piles of those. And then I used the number stamps that came in this set to add the numbers on the stamps. So that worked out really cool. And then I used the stamp set that I got last time from Globleland, this one, because this is a really cool set to use. And I used one of my postmark stamps, the New York one there, I think, just to add some postmarks as well. So we've got those that I did like that. I think they look really cool. And then I thought I'd try fussy cutting out. There's a rooster there. And stick him onto the end book page. Got another one like that there. I did 3 of those. And I also stamped the numbers onto some blank book page and cut them out. Again, I added some of the postcodes. And I think they turned out really cool. They'd look good with some colour too. I'm going to try watercolouring the chooks with some inks sometime and see how they come up. But I really like the way they look. Just done in the black ink as well, and they were done with archival ink. And then what I did was use the ticket dies, and I used the blank book page because it's nice and vintage looking, and I just cut a whole heap of the tickets and stamp shapes. And what I did was layer it up so I got 2 in each pass through of the big shot. So that gave me heaps of tickets to play with. So these will go in my stash to decorate in the future. Lots and lots of fun. You can put most of the dies on in one pass through, do 2 layers of your paper, and you have stacks of tickets to use. So very quick and easy to make a whole pile. Of course, you can cut them out of, you know, cardstock or your paper or your textbook page, whatever you like. So I did have a bit of a play with those as well. These are my 2 duds, but looking at them this morning, I actually don't mind them too much. A lot of the time when you get tickets, they do have some hand stamping on them, and it's not always in perfect condition, so I'll still keep these for a collage or something. Then I used some of these joined ones, the long ones. So I used some of the date stamps you can see here. I love the way they've turned out. They fit on the tickets very nicely. Then I used this set as well. And some of them I did as partial stamps. So this is just a partial stamp of this 28 there. And it fits really cool. So I had a lot of fun experimenting with those. So they're the long ones. I've got this big one. And this one. So that's got that whole stamp there. But you could, you know, drag out all your different stamp sets and just try different things. We've got the butterfly in the background as a secondary stamping there. Got some of the date stamps, and with some of them what I did is just use my fingers and did partial stamping on these little date stamps just to get some of the patterns that are on the corners and edges. So that was a lot of fun. And there's that one as well. So I think that is it. So that was heaps of fun. I hope I've given you some ideas on how you would use your ticket dies and how you can make some faux stamps, and the chickens, which I adore, and the date stamp pack. That was heaps of fun doing that. Lots of ideas. I'll be using all of the products that I get from Globleland a lot in the future to use up some book pages and that sort of thing. So massive thank you to Globleland for the awesome products. There will be a link to Globleland's shop below. There's also individual links to the products that I'm showing you so that you can go straight to them if you want. Make sure that you use my code, which is NAT10, upon checkout to get 10% off of any orders with Globleland. Also, my next tutorial, I shall be using the envelope dies that I got. I thought I would leave them and do them in the next tutorial because I think I'll be doing a lot with these. They'll be heaps of fun again to play around with. So keep an eye out for that tutorial. Do take care of yourself, stay safe, be good, and I will see you again soon. Bye.